This group of fierce bandits is robbing an armored truck, when suddenly a beautiful woman walks over.
We're robbing this.
No, I'm robbing it.
Just as Iron Woman finishes off the bandits, getting ready to take the gold, the hero Superman suddenly appears, walking straight up to Iron Woman, asking her to surrender immediately. However, the woman doesn't even take him seriously, taunting him as a little kid who hasn't even grown up yet, telling him to go home and drink his milk quickly. Upon hearing this, Superboy immediately rushes forward, only to be knocked down the next second. Thankfully, Superman's dad appears just in time, and with just a slight effort, he easily subdues the previously arrogant Iron Woman. However, these heroes with superpowers, who are fighting desperately to save the world, are just ordinary people at heart. Their destinies changed in 1929 in Chicago, a year that marked the eve of the Great Depression in the United States. At that time, the two heirs to the steel industry, Walter and Sheldon, had a heated argument. Walter, who graduated from a prestigious school with an economics background, predicted the imminent stock market crash in the United States. He advised his father to cut expenses and halt expansion. There's a tough battle coming up. Sheldon believes that the stock market is doing well, and thinks that Walter is just being overly worried. He believes that their current focus should be on expanding their operations to further dominate the market. Walter ultimately fails to convince their father, and soon fate deals them a blow. The financial crisis arrives, the stock market crashes, and reckless investments lead to the bankruptcy of their company. Unable to bear it, their father jumps from the rooftop of their own company. Sheldon, their son, witnesses everything and breaks down in tears, but hardships don't spare him. Sheldon comes across a newspaper article. It says the death of capitalism, accusing his father of embezzling employee pension funds, and condemning him as an unforgivable capitalist vampire. This revelation shatters Sheldon's admiration for his father, and he goes to the newspaper office to make a scene. But at that moment, he started to have a nosebleed, and Sheldon could only go back. He decided to sue the female journalist who wrote the article, but what Walter said next shattered his lifelong beliefs. It turns out that the article was true. Their father secretly diverted employee pension funds to expand the factory. All that money vanished due to the financial crisis, and their father passed away. Sheldon was naive and foolish. All this time, it was Walter who had been working hard to sustain everything. Now he had to shut down the factory and lay off the remaining employees. Only by doing so could they salvage their family business. Sheldon wanted to fight for the rights of the workers, but in the face of reality, he lowered his head. He personally went to dissolve the employees. At the funeral, while Sheldon was delivering a eulogy for his father, he suddenly began convulsing, and then collapsed to the ground. During his unconsciousness, he seemed to witness many strange scenes. A voice was calling him to set sail and find a mysterious island. After Sheldon regained consciousness, he sketched the visions he had seen in his dream onto a piece of paper. On that day, Sheldon's friend George came to visit him. George was astonished to find the room dimly lit and in disarray, and Sheldon appeared utterly dejected. He was very different from the past. In recent days, Sheldon had been frequently seeing his father's apparition. The ghostly figure even whispered in his ear, tormenting his spirit. George also noticed that Sheldon often talked to himself. Suddenly, Sheldon lost control of his emotions. He tore the paper on the table into pieces. George comforted Sheldon and talked to him until Sheldon fell asleep. Only then did George approach the table and took Sheldon's drawing. George pieced the fragments back together, feeling that there might be a secret hidden within the drawing. He found Sheldon again with the drawing, and Sheldon had returned to his usual self. Sheldon thanked George for comforting him last time. George showed him the drawing, but unexpectedly, Sheldon saw the illusion again. He saw a spinning windmill in his eyes. Disturbed by the sight, Sheldon went mad and fled from the scene, and George couldn't catch up with him. After running for an unknown distance, Sheldon arrived at a farm that was identical to the one in his dream. Upon entering the house without permission, he was caught by the owner, an elderly naval soldier. To Sheldon's surprise, the old man knew his purpose. It turned out that when the old man was in the Navy, he had encountered a dangerous sea area, where he almost lost his life but managed to survive. Ever since then, he had been haunted by hallucinations that tormented him for many years. After the old man finished speaking, he unexpectedly took his own life with a gun. Sheldon became even more perplexed, but decided to search for clues there. He opened the door to the basement. To his surprise, he found several mummified corpses sitting around. Suddenly, Sheldon's mind conjured images of his father's pocket watch and a set of coordinates. In a daze, Those corpses transformed into Sheldon's own family and friends. The persistent hallucinations tormented Sheldon greatly. Eventually, his brother, Walter, rescued him and brought him back. Upon returning home, Sheldon felt that the coordinates held great significance. He opened his father's coffin and retrieved the pocket watch from the body. The next day, Sheldon found George and shared his experience at the farm with him. He revealed that the coordinates were located in the Atlantic Ocean. Sheldon had a strong intuition that there is something here that can change the world. He planned to embark on a treasure hunt at sea, and George wholeheartedly supported him. Next, the two of them set out to find all the people Sheldon had seen in the basement illusion. They were Walter, Sheldon's brother, Grace, a journalist, and Fitz, the son of an old worker. They managed to convince the captain, who appeared in the illusion, to take them out to sea. Despite compared to the illusion, there was one person missing. They still set sail. However, as the voyage began, Grace, the journalist, noticed that Sheldon was constantly talking to himself, and his condition worsened. This made everyone think he had gone mad. Therefore, they believed that Sheldon's talk of a treasure in the Atlantic Ocean was just the ramblings of a madman. Just as they were arguing, the crew rescued a surgeon named Richard from the sea. With all 6 individuals from the illusion now present, it confirmed Sheldon's credibility. As they got closer to their destination, Sheldon's symptoms worsened, leading others to doubt him. One day, the boat suddenly started to rock violently. A violent storm arose at sea, and everyone felt terrified. They desperately demanded to turn back, but Sheldon insisted on moving forward, even using a gun to force the captain to obey him. After the ship successfully passed through the stormy area, sunlight broke through the clouds, and a piercing sound filled the sky. Everyone covered their ears. Sheldon's pocket watch suddenly shattered in his hand, and the noise disappeared. When they looked up again, the mountain from the illusion appeared before them. Everyone became ecstatic, thinking that wealth and glory were within reach. They anchored the large ship near the island, and the captain and crew waited there. If they didn't return after 3 days, the captain would leave with the others. Several people boarded a small boat and set sail towards the mysterious island. Ready to explore this place full of unknowns, the group successfully landed on the island. Sheldon found the symbols from the illusion on a tree. Shortly after, they witnessed the eerie scenery on the island, and everyone felt uneasy. Walter wanted to leave, but in the next moment, the mysterious power of the island seemed to prevent them from leaving. Snowflakes started to fall from the sky, and the group was forced to keep moving. However, they hadn't walked for long in the desert when a sandstorm struck, making it extremely difficult for them to proceed. They made their way through the sandstorm, only to face the challenge of climbing steep cliffs. Finally, they reached their destination, a large pit surrounded by giant rocks, filled with the remains of previous explorers. They weren't the first group of people summoned, and the chances of their success were slim. The remains of others would be their fate. Walter lost control of his emotions and attempted to destroy the walls. Suddenly, the surrounding rock walls began to rise, trapping everyone inside. Realizing they couldn't escape, everyone collapsed and started blaming Sheldon, resulting in chaos. At that moment, sunlight illuminated the skeletons on the ground through a well, and Grace discovered that they died from killing each other. She understood that it was a test and quickly stopped her companions, revealing the truth to them. The conflicts along the way, and the loss of emotional control by everyone earlier, were all influenced by this island. People began searching for a way out, and discovered mysterious symbols on the walls. When they touched them, the symbols became visible, and a beam of light extended upward, converging at a point. Everyone hurriedly went to illuminate the symbols, except for Walter, who couldn't participate. Sheldon urged his brother to let go of their grudges, and they worked together again. The walls slowly opened, and the group walked inside, shocked by the sights they encountered. It seemed like they had entered another world. They walked towards the distant colorful lights, and each person saw their own loved ones, who informed them that they had passed the test. A beam of light illuminated the entire island, and the crew members at sea were blinded by its brilliance. When the light faded, everyone looked up and saw the birth of 6 heroes. Afterward, the leader of the 6-member group, Sheldon, gained superhuman abilities similar to Superman, and took on the codename Utopies. He led the formation of the Justice League, and established 3 fundamental principles. Superpowered individuals must never interfere in politics. They must never disrupt the free will of the people. They must never use illegal punishment. After years of protecting the Earth, their friend George, codenamed Fox, defected due to differences in ideology. Fitz, codenamed Flashfire, became paralyzed in an accident. Journalist Grace, codenamed Liberty, formed a family with Sheldon, and gave birth to two superpowered children, Brandon and Khloe. Sheldon's brother, Walter, who possesses telepathy and mind control, took on the codename Brainwave. As time passed, they aged, their hair turned gray, and their bodies weakened. This world needs to be entrusted to a new generation of superheroes to protect it. On this day, a group of people wearing monkey masks were robbing an armored truck. These individuals had overwhelming firepower, and the police were no match for them. They were completely defenseless. Just as the robbers were about to blow up the armored truck, a woman walked over. The robbers warned her to leave quickly. To their surprise, the woman wasn't an ordinary person. Her head and hands were covered in armor. She raised her right hand and launched an attack, hitting every shot accurately. She quickly dealt with them. Steel Woman opened the iron door of the armored truck and saw it filled with gold. Suddenly, a man dressed as Superman, codenamed Sage, flew in. It was Brandon. However, Steel Woman paid no attention to him and kept mocking him. Superman charged at her, but he was blasted away by a shot. He struggled to get up, while Steel Woman prepared to fire again. Her father, Sheldon, suddenly appeared, and Steel Woman flew away into the sky. The difference in strength was evident. After the danger was averted, the father began lecturing his son, emphasizing the importance of assessing own capabilities. When facing formidable enemies, Brandon felt frustrated, and when he returned home, he drank on the rooftop. He had always wanted to be his father's successor, but after numerous failures, his father became disappointed, and even started to doubt if his son was suitable to inherit his mantle. His son overheard Sheldon complaining to his wife, and took it to heart. At that moment, Walter came as a guest, and found Brandon drinking on the rooftop. Seeing his low spirits, Walter used his telepathy to understand his concerns. Walter comforted his nephew, advising him not to be too impatient, and reminding him that many things cannot be achieved in one attempt. He needed to continuously improve himself. Soon, dinner was ready, and just as the family was saying their prayers, Khloe, their drunken daughter, arrived. After Khloe took her seat, everyone began eating again, but it didn't take long before father and daughter started arguing. Although Khloe also possessed superpowers, she had long given up on becoming a superhero, which greatly bothered Sheldon. The relationship between father and daughter remained difficult to reconcile. In the end, Khloe angrily left home, but from Brandon's perspective, his sister's rebellion stemmed from jealousy towards him becoming their father's successor. While Khloe mocked her brother, saying he lived in their father's shadow, Brandon wanted to please his father, even if it meant working as a superhero for 120 years. Meanwhile, the two brothers were having a conversation. Fitz came over to report a sudden event. The top-tier criminal Blackstar had escaped. Sheldon and his wife gathered the superheroes to apprehend him, but after a few rounds, they were overwhelmed. Sheldon charged forward again, shooting lasers from his eyes at Blackstar, but he was still knocked away with a single slap. As Blackstar was about to attack Grace, other superheroes arrived just in time. They teamed up against Blackstar, but his power was too overwhelming, and even their combined efforts couldn't defeat him. Walter used his powers to restrain Blackstar, while Barry launched a ground attack, finally managing to temporarily defeat him, but that damage was insignificant. Blackstar grabbed Green Lantern's hair and fired the laser cannon on his chest, taking 2 lives. Immediately after, Sheldon was thrown to the ground again, and it seemed like Sheldon was about to be killed. Walter exerted all his effort to control Blackstar, and dragged him into the spiritual realm. Sheldon and Ruby took the opportunity to launch their attacks, but before the others could harm him, Blackstar broke free from their control. He repelled everyone with shockwaves. Then he stepped on Sheldon, and prepared to unleash his finishing move. In a life-or-death moment, Brandon erupted, smashing Blackstar's skull, and saving his father's life. Yet, their father reproached him, saying he shouldn't have taken a life, as it violated the rule of the Justice League, that even criminals should be imprisoned and reformed. At this point, arguing about this had no meaning. They have already lost 3 companions. What's even more surprising is that this Blackstar is actually a replica, and the real one is still serving his sentence in prison. After carefully examining with his glasses, he burst into laughter. It was evident that someone was playing tricks on them. But when Blackstar learned that Brandon had violated the rule, and his father had no intention of punishing him, he felt extremely angry. He was forcibly taken back to prison by the police. The next day, they made this matter public, but the public's reaction was intense. The majority of people supported killing supervillains, instead of keeping them incarcerated. This displeased Sheldon. After returning home, He took the initiative to talk to his son about this matter. Justice without due process is not true justice. Once the killing starts, superheroes will become dictators, and America will become a dark nation where people have no free will. That's why they must set an example. If one day, the son becomes utopias, what should guide him is justice, not hatred. But Brandon couldn't understand his father's words. He only remembered losing 3 friends. Seeing Brandon's obstinacy, Sheldon asked him to reflect on himself. He actively sought out his daughter Khloe, hoping she would come back for the funeral and persuade her brother. However, Khloe had long endured grievances. Her father's excessive desire for control made her suffer. He had always criticized everything about himself, to the point that now she couldn't have a proper conversation with her father. In the end, they parted ways unhappily. At the funeral, Brandon delivered a speech in honor of his departed friends. Khloe was still absent. While Fitz came over and praised Brandon, thanking him for saving his daughter. Even the police acknowledged his actions, but Sheldon saw all of this. On the other side, a few thugs were gathered in a room, and one of them turned out to be Hutch, the traitor George's son. One of the underlings asked about the reason for this solo operation, and Hutch needed a quantum module, but couldn't leave any traces, so he had to do it himself this time. At night, Hutch arrived at the roadside, recited an incantation with his moonlight staff in hand, and was instantly teleported to the back of a truck. He didn't expect there to be an ambush on the truck. Just as the opponent opened fire, he was teleported away again. But the next moment, Sheldon arrived at the scene, and both sides immediately engaged in a fight. Taking advantage of the chaos, Hutch teleported back to the truck, but at that moment, a stray bullet damaged the module. Seeing the plan failing, Hutch could only teleport back home. The failure of this mission frightened the underlings, as they knew the boss would not let them off easily. Hutch reassured them not to worry, as he would handle things smoothly. Soon, 2 burly men approached Hutch, indicating that the boss was looking for him. He immediately teleported to the boss's side. The boss was there to hold him accountable. Hutch messed up the mission, which made the boss very angry. The boss threatened him with his companions, stating that the next mission must be completed, or else he would be mercilessly eliminated. He needed to retrieve the box from the Kurakov brothers. Hutch immediately returned to his companions, and conveyed the boss's new mission. After preparing themselves, the group set off in a car. Although they successfully obtained the item, the Kurakov brothers were hot on their heels, and Jack was unfortunately injured. Hutch drove the car at top speed. At a critical moment, Jack guided Hutch to activate the secret switch in the car. The car unexpectedly passed through the wall, and arrived on another street, causing everyone to cheer. Hutch's attention was diverted, and the car collided with a pedestrian. That person turned out to be none other than Khloe, who was strolling on the street. The thugs thought she was a member of the Justice League, coming to apprehend them, so they immediately launched an attack. However, these people were no match for Khloe, and they quickly fled, leaving behind the hard-earned box. As the mission failed, Hutch was once again confronted by the 2 muscular brothers. The boss gave them a chance, but Hutch and his group proved to be ineffective, so the boss came to eliminate them. After hearing his companion being insulted, Hutch no longer hid his strength. The man even tried to snatch the moonlight staff, but he didn't realize that the artifact had a master. In an instant, the man was teleported next to a shark by Hutch. When he was teleported back, only a tentacle remained on the staff. The remaining Linus immediately surrendered. Hutch also didn't want to cause any trouble.
Big man's heart.
A spell. The boss immediately lost his life. Hutch spared Linus's life, but it came at a hefty price. Hutch used the money to purchase a mysterious weapon from a black market dealer. Upon returning to his residence, he dismantled and reforged it. On that day, Khloe planned to dance for relaxing. She met Nick in the dance floor, and they instantly hit it off. He was curious why she refused to become a superhero, but Khloe changed the subject. While the two were talking, their friend Jenna spotted Khloe. Jenna, also a superhero with the codename Ghostbeam, warmly invited them to join a party. Yet, the girl Ruby didn't welcome Khloe's presence, because she had been absent from the funerals of 3 heroes. Sierra also questioned her, asking where she was when everyone else was fighting. Khloe stepped forward to warn her not to bite people indiscriminately, but Sierra couldn't contain her anger, and continued to mock her. Ignoring the warning, Khloe sent Sierra flying with a punch. Just as Sierra was about to counterattack, Nick froze everyone in place. It turns out he also has superpowers, codenamed Nick of Time. Both of them felt that staying there any longer could cause even greater chaos, so they relocated to Khloe's house. Khloe also felt sad for not attending the funerals, but she didn't want to yield to her father either. Nick comforted her, saying that it was Khloe's own life, and she could make her own decisions and do whatever she wants. Nick's words made Khloe feel moved. The next morning, Khloe received a call from her agent. She was now a model, and there was an important announcement she needed to come for. Just as she was about to leave for the company, Nick revealed his intention to join the Justice League and asked Khloe to introduce him. Unfortunately, he approached the wrong person. Khloe despised the Justice League, and she sent him flying with a punch. Khloe arrived at the shooting location, changed into stunning attire, struck a stunning pose, and radiated her beauty under the flashlights. Just when Khloe thought the job was finished, the client informed her that a set of superhero-themed photos had yet to be taken. The company demanded that she lift the sports car, and she immediately wanted to refuse, but the agent threatened her with her payment, so Khloe had no choice but to agree. The next second, she turned around confidently and left. On the way home in the evening, she received a phone call, informing her that she had been dropped from the endorsement, and it was her only one, and her agent had left her. Just then, a speeding car crashed into her. This was the day Hutch collided with Khloe. The thugs who got out of the car, upon seeing her face, mistakenly thought she was the daughter of the Utopies, and believed she was about to act heroically. The thugs attacked her. Khloe also wanted to stretch her muscles, so she fought off the thugs. Among the thugs, Khloe recognized one of them as Hutch, the son of the traitor George. Khloe picked up the blue powder that fell at the scene. After returning home, Khloe was feeling very down, and she remembered the bag of powder. She was a little curious. She put it in her mouth and tasted it. Unexpectedly, the drug's effect was so strong that even Khloe, who had superpowers, almost couldn't handle it. She quickly called her friend to share this miraculous powder. At that moment, the landlord came knocking on the door. In the morning, Khloe accidentally made a big hole in the wall, and he didn't want to rent the house to her anymore. He wanted to evict everyone present. Unexpectedly, Khloe asked her friend Kat for help, and in no time, she repaired the wall. The landlord was taken aback, and had no choice but to leave. After the festivities ended, Khloe's friend Jenna came to take care of her. In her confused state, Khloe spoke her mind for the first time. She wanted to live for herself, but couldn't completely shake off the opinions of others, and she didn't even have a friend. Jenna believed she could become better, and Khloe didn't argue. She simply drove Jenna away, and sat alone in the darkness. She picked up her phone, but didn't know who to contact. Unable to vent her frustration, she grabbed the remaining blue powder. Soon, the excessive dosage made her nose bleed, and she collapsed to the ground, experiencing convulsions. At that moment, Hutch teleported to the scene, and immediately realized that the things he had worked hard to obtain had already been depleted by Khloe. Nevertheless, he still saved her. As a result, the two of them met. Hutch embodied a spirit of rebellion and defiance. He hated the Justice League and the hypocritical rules of superheroes, which intrigued Khloe. They turned from enemies to friends. On the other side, Sheldon was in a bad mood. He felt like the whole world was against him because of his daughter's rebellion, which strained his relationship with his wife. Grace, his wife, believed that Sheldon's parenting style was problematic, which caused their child to drift further away from him. Their son, Brandon, killed a Blackstar clone and violated the rules of the Justice League. However, Brandon didn't believe he did anything wrong, as he believed he was following the will of the people. Sheldon couldn't accept that. The rules he had followed all his life were seemingly meaningless. Jack, who was across from him, asked Sheldon at what moment he decided to become a good person. Sheldon pondered for a moment and replied that it was probably after he saw that newspaper. He discovered that his father had done so many things behind his back that he was unaware of. He repeatedly read that article, and from that moment, he made up his mind. Since he couldn't numb himself to approve of his father, he decided to undo the wrongs his father had committed and become a good person himself. Jack understood why Sheldon was so obsessed with rules and regulations. Rules and regulations are not only a systemized way for Sheldon to do good, but also reduce the occurrence of death. But those vicious criminals won't show mercy to superhumans. While other professions may kill to protect themselves, members of the Justice League must always remember the rules and regulations. This is actually a way of honoring Sheldon. Ultimately, it's because Sheldon wants to live in the hearts of the people he loves, rather than being like his father. For this reason, he has established a set of logical thinking. If he is a good person, then bad things won't befall him and his loved ones. It's a way to avoid the cruel reality. While reality can overpower ideals, and the world is not black and white, Sheldon's logic and the ironclad rules he established have their own flaws. After pondering for a while, Sheldon expressed gratitude to Jack, and then left the place. Unexpectedly, Jack was living in prison, and was a convict who wanted to kill Sheldon. However, Sheldon felt that only Jack truly understood him. The next day, Sheldon's mood improved slightly. He went to the field, and personally plowed the land. At that moment, his wife, Grace, approached him, and they started chatting about their son. It was then that Sheldon revealed that he had sent their son, Brandon, to witness the autopsy of the fake Blackstar. His wife strongly disagreed, stating that her husband shouldn't have subjected their child to such harshness, while Sheldon believed that it was necessary for Brandon to become Utopies. In the end, neither of them could convince the other. Brandon and Walter were waiting for others in the church when Bass descended from the sky. The three of them entered the autopsy room together. Fitz encountered a problem. The Blackstar corpse's armor was connected to the organization. If it was removed, the organization would be destroyed, so he called them for help. Bass directly used his superpowers, successfully separating the organization from the armor. He discovered a black metal sphere, and Bass opened it with a few twists. Surprisingly, inside was a golden pocket watch, identical to the one left by Sheldon's father. 2 Blackstars, 2 pocket watches. What secrets are they hiding? After studying it, the three of them discovered that the metal sphere had a peculiar structure, and pointed to the long-missing Skyfox, George. They were puzzled as to why Skyfox had only taken action after all these years. Sheldon remembered someone who might be able to help them find answers, so he sought out Hutch. Sheldon asked Hutch about his father, Skyfox's whereabouts. Hutch attempted to teleport away, but Sheldon managed to grasp the Moonlight Staff, disabling Hutch's teleportation ability. Hutch revealed that he had been searching for his father for many years, since he was 12, but he hadn't seen him since then. The Moonlight Staff couldn't bring him to his father's location, and the trail to Skyfox ended there. Nevertheless, Sheldon followed Hutch to a nightclub, and urged him to contact him immediately if he found Skyfox. On the other side, Grace went to the autopsy room and found her son. After discussing it, they decided that Fitz would activate certain parts of the corpse's hippocampus and cortex, Bass would reconstruct the damaged areas, and Walter would enter Blackstar's mind to examine his memories. This way, they hoped to uncover the true purpose behind all of this. Everyone immediately prepared. Sheldon received an urgent mission notification. Only Grace was left at home. She took out a box containing newspapers and photos from all these years. She started looking through the photos, sighing at how time flies. She was interrupted by a distress signal, indicating another emergency in the city. Jenna stopped Jay, but he was unwilling to see his friend harmed, and insisted on launching an attack. At a critical moment, Grace arrived at the scene and stopped Jay. Jenna explained on behalf of Jay that Austin, the injured boy, was his best friend. That's why caused him to lose control. But Jenna still worried about the current situation, as the younger generation no longer adhered to the rules. Grace also learned from Jenna that her daughter was hospitalized, and hurriedly went to Khloe's apartment. Coincidentally, she bumped into Hutch, who happened to be there. He was Skyfox's son. Why would Khloe be with him? Faced with her mother's questioning, the daughter felt upset. Why did she have to be restricted even when she had a boyfriend? Why did her mother always have to obey her father? Grace couldn't answer her daughter's questions. Khloe didn't want her boyfriend to know that her own mother was spying on her. Grace had no choice but to leave. She found Fitz, and told him about Jay's near violation of the rules. She had a hunch that someone was seeking revenge on them, using Blackstar as the trigger, to incite the anger of the younger generation of heroes. If it weren't for Jenna's intervention today, Jay would have committed a deadly act. But Fitz felt that it was what the villain deserved, which surprised Grace. Even the veteran members' perspectives had changed, but at that moment, she didn't know that something would soon happen that would completely change her outlook. Another riot occurred in the city, and Grace rushed to the scene, asking the police officer for specific details. Criminals had blown up half a block. It was likely connected to Blackstar. Jenna had already pursued into the building, and Grace quickly went to support her. The building was pitch black inside, with only the sound of dripping water. Suddenly, a distant scream echoed. Grace immediately rushed over. She watched Jenna die before her eyes, and the killer was Rishikar. Because she adhered too strictly to the rules, Jenna sacrificed her own life. Filled with anger, Grace found Rishikar, and vented her grief and anger on him. Although she restrained herself from killing him, her beliefs had started to waver. The rules her husband established protected the people's free will, but couldn't protect the superheroes. The younger generation of superhumans had been taught from a young age not to take lives, but their enemies never showed them mercy. This left the children living in confusion and fear, resorting to numbing themselves in a chaotic and indulgent lifestyle. Perhaps the next time they would die on a mission. Grace didn't plan on standing together with her husband anymore, and the couple erupted into a fierce argument. When Grace was young, she was a journalist who dared to ask questions and seek the truth. But after becoming a superhuman, these traits faded away, and she became a different person. Now she needed to rediscover herself, and hoped her husband would listen to the voices of others, understanding the hero's demands. But Sheldon did not accept. He felt that his wife did not understand, as utopies, what he must do now. Meanwhile, Walter has completed the preparations to infiltrate Blackstar's mind, but everyone thinks it's too risky. Grace proposed to gather another psychic superhuman, Lightning, who is also Walter's daughter. Although her superpowers are inherited from her father, but her abilities are also strong. Sheldon disagrees. Lightning is a professional assassin. He has become a mercenary who kills people and stole goods for money. He does not allow such people into the Justice League, but now the situation is tense. There's no time to worry about that. Walter brings his daughter from Japan into the psychic realm. They reach a monetary agreement. Lightning agrees to come and help. She rushed over from Japan. After everyone arrived, they went to the laboratory. Walter and his daughter joined forces. Lightning was responsible for opening the psychic channel. Walter took the opportunity to dive into the consciousness. However, the brain of the Blackstar clone was a trap. Walter was trapped inside and unable to escape. Lightning desperately maintained the opening of the channel. At this moment, the remaining brain of Blackstar was experiencing a chain failure. Once it closed, Walter would no longer be able to come out. Everyone was anxiously trying to find a solution. Walter's consciousness was being torn apart. He let out cries of agony. Sheldon saw his brother in such pain. He blamed his wife for suggesting this plan. He left. He found his son, Brandon. He shared his inner thoughts with his son. After gaining divine powers, Sheldon felt a heavy burden on his shoulders. He wants to improve the country and even the world. For this, he has made many sacrifices. After establishing the regulations, differences in ideology emerged. He lost George, who was like family. His bet Lightning also hurt Sheldon. Seeing his brother in danger, he feared losing both his older brother and his son. Brandon comforted his father. Before this, Fitz's daughter, Petra, found him. She planned to leave the Justice League. Due to Jenna's death, she no longer believed in the regulations. Brandon wanted to stop her, but his father's intention in establishing the regulations was to make superhumans become good people, not just for them to have better lives. It wasn't an easy task, but in his conversation with Petra, he understood why his father was obsessed with the regulations. When someone questions it, Brandon himself also cares. He finally understood his father. Sheldon also made a promise to listen more to others' opinions. The father and son reached a reconciliation. Just at that moment, Petra rushed in to inform them. The real Blackstar in the prison was released by someone. Now only Sheldon and Brandon can fight. The rest of the people are helping Walter. The two of them immediately went to intercept, but they wouldn't expect. Walter in Blackstar's spiritual realm saw Skyfox George. The two immediately started fighting. Psychic Walter was no match in physical combat. He couldn't defeat George at all. In reality, Walter's body also started to weaken. Grace quickly entered for support, but after a few moments, she was controlled in mid-air. Skyfox wanted to settle the score with Walter, because he was the one who caused the falling out with the Justice League. He even showed Walter his upcoming plans. Meanwhile, Brandon was successfully ambushed by Blackstar. Blackstar choked Brandon and asked, "Do you want to uphold the regulations and enforce justice, or save your son and kill yourself?" Sheldon was caught in hesitation. Petra timely ambushed from behind, breaking the deadlock. The father and son counterattacked in the opportunity, but they were still no match for Blackstar. Seeing his father being beaten up, Brandon strikes again. He sent Blackstar flying, but this time he didn't kill the other party. He upheld the Justice League's regulations, but Brandon felt disappointed that his father didn't save him in time. He didn't say much. He only left his father with a departing figure. But the matter wasn't over. Walter and Grace finally escaped from the spiritual realm. Lightning left directly after completing the mission. Walter shared the information given by Skyfox with Grace. It turned out to be a scene of him killing the father and son. At night, Walter went to Lightning's house. Lightning thought his father came to settle the 1 million commission between two top-level telepaths. There were no secrets. Turns out, his daughter had discovered it long ago. His father cloned Blackstar and blamed Skyfox, and let the real Blackstar escape. Then he instigated strife between Sheldon and his son, because this series of events would cause political unrest. Only through unrest would new leaders emerge. This was Walter's true purpose. He wants to become the new Utopies, in everyone's eyes. Skyfox is the biggest antagonist. Sheldon is a useless ruler, while he sees himself as an understanding and helpful older brother. What a perfect ending. But his daughter Lightning is an unnecessary part of the plan. If it weren't for Grace's suggestion, he wouldn't have let his daughter get involved. Lightning demanded $50 million to keep his secret, but Walter knows deep down, dead people are always the trustiest. In the final scene, Walter stands beside his helpless brother, seeming to become his last support. The film ends here. The film is adapted from Mark Millar's original comic book, Jupiter's Legacy, using a dual narrative and interweaving editing. The first storyline tells how the first generation of superheroes obtained their powers. The comic book describes it in just a 6-page prologue, but the film extends it to several hours. It's not told in one go, but rather intercuts with the present-day storyline. The narrative rhythm is quite chaotic. The audience was just captivated by the eerie past storyline, but the next moment, it suddenly turned into nightclub dancing. The modern-day storyline had intense battles, then it turned into a fight between brothers. Such editing techniques made the Cthulhu horror atmosphere of the past storyline disappear. The modern storyline also seemed more fragmented and dragged on. It was mixed with a lot of family conflicts, meaningless arguments, and the decadent nightlife of young heroes, which made it hard to understand what the main storyline was trying to convey. Why did the heroes easily believe that Skyfox was the mastermind? The whole story didn't have a twist until the last few minutes. Walter turned out to be the real mastermind. He framed Skyfox, isolated Sheldon, even willing to kill his own daughter to achieve his goals, but he didn't succeed in the end. And it wasn't explained clearly how he cloned Blackstar and the pocket watch that runs throughout the series. What special significance does it have? Which side will Khloe choose? Who will break the rules? The plot left so many mysteries, but none of them were resolved. And the theme of the film is to explore if justice needs rules, but the execution remains superficial, making it hard to contemplate. What kind of challenges and hardships do the heroes actually face? If you like my channel, please subscribe to my channel.